All right. What's up? Welcome back to the Triple Cross podcast. We are live with some week 4 NFL action, some week 5 picks. But first, it's October. We got to talk some baseball. We don't really watch baseball. We're not a baseball pod, but I feel like we can't not acknowledge that it's October and it's playoff season. I don't know if you saw this one, Casey. This week, the Mariners made the playoffs. Casey and I both grew up as Mariners fans.
Yeah, I think baseball was, I think it's fair to say it was both of our first loves in sports.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And the Mariners were probably the team we both liked the most.
I think we stopped watching baseball because they haven't been to the playoffs in 20 years. If I'm being honest, I'm like, well, if these guys suck, then I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean, I fell off pretty much shortly after the last time they made the playoffs.
Yep.
And yeah, I think we're probably the issue. Honestly, we weren't paying enough attention.
I mean, if we were cheering for them this whole time, they probably would have made it. But made it in dramatic fashion. Cal Raleigh, the catcher, hits a walk-off home run. I think I don't even think he's like usually the starting catcher. He might have been pinch hitting. I don't know. He hits a walk-off homer, ends the longest drought in play. I didn't know this. In all of the U.S. major sports, no team has had a longer playoff drought. That includes teams like the Washington Wizards and the Cleveland Browns.
and
the Cleveland Indians. I mean, that's pretty bad, man. Yeah. That's pretty bad. Yeah, the Washington Commanders. It was a good at bat, man. It was a 3-2 count. He fouled one off. I mean, that's like, when you're in your backyard when you're a kid and you're like throwing balls up in the air and hitting it. Like that's what's in your head. You're like bottom of the ninth, 3-2 count.
Unreal stuff. And I mean, so unreal. My favorite part is when he's like rounding first base on his way to second. It just hits him like, oh. Yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, he's not even on the season. He only hit 26 homers and he tanked this thing into the upper deck. Only hitting 205. So it's not like he typically hits around the bottom of the lineup, so this wasn't who they wanted at the plate, but they got him and he got the job done for him. So congrats, Mariners. Change the ticker at the bottom right as we're finishing talking about the Mariners. Nice. Moving to some NFL action. Tua. I mean, I feel like we're following up on this is the biggest story to us because we're like, hey, we talked about how he might die. Glad he's not dead. Glad he's alive and okay. Definitely very, very scary stuff in the game against the Bengals. I think I got it here. I mean, I don't know if we're allowed to show this, but we can just whatever. Let's do it. Present.
Yep, pretty scary. I'll fill the air here a little bit. Pretty scary stuff that happened. We kind of called this a little bit. We at least discussed the scenario. If something like this were to happen. It's crazy how much this looks.
Oh no! Oh! Boom! Same hit.
Same thing. One. You got to wonder almost.
And look at the hands. Ooh.
Grossest. Not gross, but like makes you feel like you worry, right? Like I've never seen a reaction quite like that before. Seen a lot of hits. Never seen one quite like that. Apparently, it's a fencing response.
That's what the Twitter doctor said. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people kind of tie this into like must have been a concussion last week because it's especially bad. And if we're putting on our real thinking caps, I don't think you have to associate the two, but it is hard to separate them from one another, right? Like,
dude, the biggest coincidence ever, right? Like, it's like, I was kind of saying just because he has a concussion this week doesn't mean he already had a concussion. But yeah, I mean, he could have maybe. I mean, what has the investigation shown us so far?
Well, I'm just first off, I'll go ahead and float out my opinion that I'm okay with being a little bit more on narrative street. I thought it was concussion in the first place last week against the Bills. So I'm going to just stay on that. This was what I was worried about. Even if he wasn't concussed that first time around, I think the main thing for me is like, okay, is there something he's doing? He's obviously trying to extend plays a little bit. He's not exactly like moving around a ton, just enough. Then he sits in another pocket that's kind of created for too long.
And he gets play action, hanging out. What is he, man? Yeah, get rid of the ball.
Rolling out but also if he's playing concussed, then you kind of get it. You're like, hey, maybe you're not thinking.
He looked good in the second half of the Bills game. He looked fine.
All the he won them the game, and all the interviews leading up to this game, they said he was fine and everything. But like,
he's got an open guy over here for a first down.
The brain is a tender
I keep interrupting you.
well, we're no doctors, right? But the doctor did clear him, right? They cleared him last week against the Bills. So, they call him the unaffiliated neurological consultant, I think is the official title. That guy has been fired. I don't think it's exactly because they've admitted that he made a mistake in the process of the protocol. I think the NFL has admitted there might be some gaps in the protocol, as we talked about, hey, you might be able to pass these tests, and it is your job to try to pass the test, as you pointed out last week. But just because you can pass the test doesn't mean you should
play. It's not, yeah.
And the coaches use that as I don't want to say an excuse, but I mean, they're not medical professionals. They just know that's their best quarterback. When a medical professional clears them, when multiple medical professionals clear him, what's the head coach to do other than say, well, I'm going to play my guy then? There's no risk, right? That's what you're telling me. So a lot of people want to blame McDaniel. If anybody's to blame, it's the NFL, because that doctor that was actually agreed upon between the NFL and the Players Association.
Yep.
Might have watched it, might not have. I don't know.
Look, yeah, I mean, does it release the team from liability? I think that's the discussion, right? Is the team not still liable? We've seen other head coaches hold players out even when they're cleared. I think the thing with concussions and with Tua, because the other thing you have to understand here is that this is a player who's had so much misfortune that if you're Mike McDaniel, you're a player's guy, you're a player's coach. There's also that consideration, right? Yeah, of course you don't want him to get hurt, but also, this is a guy who's kind of probably feels like he's on his last shot. He's not really, he kind of keeps having these setbacks, right? And he's got momentum now. And he is a player, you got to protect him from himself. But he also, if you care about him, you're maybe he just needs a chance to play and not be injured. I don't know. And maybe I'm throwing the coach too much bail. I'm throwing the program, the organization too much bail. But I didn't necessarily, the Twitter mob was on the Dolphins. I wasn't necessarily with that narrative. I think,
and I wasn't. The
hard thing is when something like this happens, when you see somebody's hands look like it's human nature to want to blame somebody for things, right? Everyone wants somebody's head to roll for this. And the head that ended up rolling was kind of the doctors, I guess, because
maybe not the most sensitive, thing.
Right.
Heads rolling.
Right. I guess, but I didn't necessarily mean it as a pun or anything like that. Everybody wants to blame someone. And I think the tough thing to admit is that I don't think that any one person or organization is 100% to blame here. I think that concussions are really subjective injuries, and they're it's hard to do anything that's going to say, hey, he conclusively is concussed and can't play. There's not it's a continuum from white to black with all the shades of gray in between. If I go like that with a pair of scissors, I'm somewhere on that continuum that is not what I was before. Right. Could I still play football? Yes. That's what's hard about this. So there's no one person or people, I think, that are really, really to blame. I think the protocols are maybe a little to blame, and there's some updating that's happening. But that's the tough thing, is that it's we can't blame anyone. Everybody wants to blame someone.
Yeah, it's kind of a bad look for everybody involved, really.
Yeah, everybody's a little bit. Yeah. Right.
Even the Dolphins themselves, you can say but they won a game because of that. Sure, they sacrificed their quarterback, you might say, but they won that game against the Bills, big game to a interdivision rival. But the new buzzword floating around is the motor, the gross motor dysfunction, or whatever they say. We got somebody jumping in here.
Here we go.
Let's get our guy.
Change our backpack. Let's get this guy out of here. Change our background.
We can have him in while we do that.
We can't. Then we can't see you and me, which is
that's why I didn't want to jump in right away.
That's what's really important, because now Casey and John are not visible, and it's just
no, we're good. We're good.
Well, hey, actually, that's great timing, because guess what we're about to talk about, Q?
Oh no!
I hope it's not the Rams.
It is. We got some time dedicated to it. You came in ready to talk about this, I'm sure. Casey's definitely ready. Look at him. He's he didn't even really want to talk about anything else. He wanted to talk about this for 1 hour today. So
it has his
He's got his
19
Debo
problems.
jersey on.
19
He's got
problems,
his
but scoring ain't one jersey on.
That's true.
19 problems, but scoring ain't one. Yeah, I don't know. Who wants to start here? I'll start. I'll say something neutral, and I'll say like what? I mean, Q. Let me get your take on this. Cooper Kupp was targeted 19 times. He had 14 receptions for 122 yards. Rams still managed to lose, not score a touchdown. What is up with your boys? What's going on?
Dude, honestly, if you want me to be honest.
Yes, I would like you to be dishonest. This is triple
Don't-
cross. We're not honest. No,
the
go
only
ahead. Be honest.
explanation for this is Matthew Stafford sold the game. The Rams overall just had a bad game, and the 49ers just came prepared. That's all it was. Like any other day, if they were to run it back, Rams win that 100%.
Okay, all right. So that we said last week, maybe the Niners have the best defense in football. The Niners only had 2 offensive touchdowns, and that was kind of what we said, right? Casey was like, "Dude, if this offense can figure out the way to score twice, it's gonna be really tough to beat them because they're also gonna have some field goals in there. They might have a defensive touchdown."
Yeah,
that's exactly what happened. Rams 2 weeks in a row, the Niners defense has not given up a single touchdown.
Yeah,
Casey, what's your take here? I mean, what the Q says if we run it back, I mean, we're gonna run it back. It's gonna happen again.
They're gonna play
this
again.
season.
I would point to 7 of the last 8 matchups between these two teams. The Niners have won 7 in a row in the regular season. They've won. That's also the number of sacks from this game.
Yes.
From one side, the Niners sacked
my
Stafford 7 times. I mean, everybody knows Nick Bosa. He's a premier edge rusher in the NFL.
He only had 1 of the 7, right?
Exactly. This is true team pressure. There's some coverage sacks mixed in there. I mean, the Rams, you hear about it a lot because they got Aaron Donald, right, on the front level. You got Bobby Wagner as that linebacker, elite player, and you got Jalen Ramsey. They keep saying there's elite players at every level of the Rams defense, which I'm not even really arguing, but that defense is not as good as the Niners defense. I think at this point, you know, when the Niners offense, who a lot of people like to poke fun at, do what they did against this defense, I don't think they're in contention for the top defense, at least so far. The Rams, I mean. And when the Niners shut down the reigning Super Bowl champs as much as they did, they held them to no touchdowns, which is the first time in like 12 years the Rams didn't score a touchdown in a game, something crazy like that. It's the first time in Sean McVay's head coaching career that they had 0 plays of 20 yards or more, 0 explosive plays. And the Niners, you know, the biggest improvement in the Niners defense from last year to this year is the secondary. And, you know, we have maybe the best linebackers in football, maybe the defensive line in football, but the secondary is so improved. Huge offseason acquisition with a true number 1 cornerback in Mooney Ward to shut down big guys. And we have 2 of the top 3 rated safeties in the NFL per PFF. Neither of them were starters last year. One of them is a backup. We're getting our regular starting free safety back here any minute, any week. The Niners defense is the real deal. The offense still courts out a little bit, but they look good in this one. I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Bend don't break defense, right? 2 games in a row, no touchdowns. You know, no plays over 20 yards. That's and that's what bend don't break defense is. It's like bend, and then when we're in that red zone, the pressure is going to come through. And I mean, they executed 49ers football. I mean, that's all I really saw there. It was like that was the Niners cooking, right? Like that was the Niners cooking and playing their best football. Some offensive stats here. Cooper Kupp, I already covered this, targeted 19 times, caught 14 of them, even though he's WR1, still figuring out a way to get catches. Stafford threw for 254 yards on 32 of 48. He threw 48 passes, and he connected on 32 of them. Pretty good completion percentages, but only 254 yards on those 32 passes. Matt Stafford completed more passes than Jimmy G threw. Jimmy G only threw 27 passes. He connected on 16 of them, a little bit lower completion percentage, but 239 yards, only 15 yards less than Mr. Stafford. And that is thanks to your boy, Debo. Q, what do we got to see from the Rams coming off of this? What do we got to see from the Rams to turn this season? I mean, they've kind of been a little lackluster in the first 4 games. I mean, they're fine. They're 2-2, but
they're not necessarily doing bad. It's just the fact that I don't know if it's between their O-line last game. I don't know if it's between Matthew Stafford not being able to move in the pocket. I don't know what it is exactly, but 7 sacks cannot happen. The Rams had no sacks. The Rams did not sack Jimmy G one time. So, like, that was what literally, made him.
I mean, even on offense, it's yak yards, it's Niners football. All right, so Casey gets the victory in round 1 of Q versus Casey, and his reward is to be able to show one highlight from the game. Here's his highlight. Boom, 1 broken tackle. Whoa, juked a guy out of his shoes. Another broken tackle coming up. Boom, this is Debo. Debo houses it.
Aaron Donald's the only one putting in work on this team.
I mean, Debo's playing a different game than everyone else.
I'm telling you guys, I said it before the season started. This is the best ball carrier in the NFL. Look at that. Contested catch.
Broken.
Beats one guy immediately. Beats
great
2 guys.
Block. The downfield,
He's beating defenders in pairs.
Let's not downplay the downfield blocking on this play. It was really good.
Yeah, and that is why it's Niners football. Yes. Big time. It is a team sport. Debo is just the star that shines the best. And I mean, to their credit, the Rams have essentially a Debo, right? And Cooper Kupp. But you can't target.
He couldn't get any yak yards. It was like he was getting connected with, but he could not move.
Defense swarms. And when, I think from the Niners fans, when they're not doing this well, you wonder, why don't they just why don't they give Debo the ball even more? And you see why when you look at the other side of the ball. You can't hyper target a guy like Cooper Kupp all game long. 19 targets, and one of those missed opportunities was a pick 6 by sophomore breakout safety Talanoa Hufanga. He jumped a screen to Kupp, which was, in the post game interview, he said, it's this play they run a lot. It's one of their like early drive plays where they try to get a little momentum going. It's one of those feel good plays. It doesn't always go for a ton, but it gets them in rhythm. And he picked up on it, and you got to have more to go to, especially for a guy like Sean McVay, who is this offensive wonderkin, right? He was the youngest head coach for the longest time, went to the Super Bowl, youngest head coach in the Super Bowl. And he's supposed to be this offensive mastermind. Well, you got to have more to go to for that. They're still a good team, obviously, but this just speaks to, in my mind, to the strength of this whole coaching tree, because McVay is an offshoot of the Shanahan coaching tree. And these guys know how to coach. Their head coach is popping up all over the NFL from this tree now. This system is being adapted everywhere. We might touch on it as we talk about other games, but there's a reason that people are buying into this style of football because it works. And I'm sticking to the playoff predictions out of this division in football. I think both these teams are going to be in the playoffs. This is a pivotal matchup, though, because the Niners have that divisional record kind of boost right now where the Rams do not. That 1-0 in division, or have they played 2-0? Either way, they're killing it. I mean, the NFC West is all knotted up at 2-2 every team. So when you beat a team in the division, that's huge because that's one of the tiebreakers. I mean, they have like 7 tiebreakers for playoff seeding, but that's one of them. So
all right,
very big.
Well, sparing Q a little bit here because if the Rams win the next matchup, then I'm sure Casey won't want to talk about it as much. So moving on to the Raiders, who last week we were like, these guys are currently the worst team in football. The Raiders won a game. Yay. Woo. Good job, Raiders. Finally. Derek Carr somehow manages to still play very average even though they win. 21 of 34, 188 yards. Like, that's just not that good for a win. I mean, what they scored like 32 points or something like that. All thanks to Josh Jacobs, just monster game. Josh Jacobs basically in one game brought himself up into the top 5 in rushing yards.
What did I tell you guys
this year?
What did I tell?
You didn't say anything. I don't think you've ever said anything about Josh Jacobs.
No, he did.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Josh Jacobs
you get the floor
leagues. Wait, you know what's crazy? I just got to point this out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
So I took Josh Jacobs in both leagues, both fantasy leagues, and guess what? This guy scored 34 points on my bench in both.
Oh. See, I thought you were about to brag more. I was going to say you also took Hunter Renfrow in both leagues, and how's that working out for you?
That same thing happened with Rashad Penny for me. He scored.
But I
like
did
30
tell you guys
points.
about Josh Jacobs though, and you guys are like,
No,
no.
everybody already knew about Josh Jacobs. I mean,
Well,
but
no,
yes,
to be fair,
we were pretty low on him. I will say that we were
You
pretty
guys were
low on
very
him at a
low on
running
him.
back.
to be
spot.
fair,
As
the
a
nuance
podcast.
that we're missing here is that I believe in Josh Jacobs, a player. I was very clear about that. But I thought the new brass, they're in
Right.
I almost said
They
Oakland,
wanted the
in
pass.
Las Vegas. I didn't think they were high on him because they drafted a rookie. But I mean, keep giving him the ball. And to also be fair to my take, this was the first time they used him like this. So they were using him in kind of a committee role. And I am all on board with this. If I was a Raiders fan, I'd be like, why are we even giving the ball to anybody else out of the backfield at least?
Let the man set up the pass, right? Like, why haven't we seen more Devontae targets? It's because he's super covered, right? So like, let this kid set up the pass, and maybe we can get some downfield stuff to Devontae, assuming Derek Carr can make a throw. Another pull out of this game. Russ threw for 237 yards, 2 tutties. He also led the team in rushing yards with Devontae Williams out. Cortland Sutton sitting at 6th overall in receiving yards for the year. So Casey's take on Cortland Sutton, like, this kid's actually pretty good, maybe true. And Russ is still doing Russ things. They're just, they just lost the game.
Fewer and further between maybe these days. But here's the big takeaway for me is this is, even though they lost, this was one of the first games where Russ actually looked better, I thought, just from the eye test. The Broncos offense was moving pretty good. They, we'll talk about the big injury here in a second, but this was, when I say the rest of the NFL is kind of adopting this like Shanahan-esque scheme, this is one of those teams. They're actually doing the exact same thing that the Packers did not too long ago. Before Aaron Rodgers won his 2 MVPs, they took that system, they adapted it. It's a struggle. It takes a transition period, but once you get firing with it, if you have the right personnel in there, it is the best system in the NFL for winning football games, not necessarily for putting up stats. It's how you game script wins. So they're going to pull it out. They're turning it around. I'm sticking with the Broncos are going to the playoffs. I'm not jumping off that.
Hey, no, I'm not jumping off the Broncos train either. That game management coach is really going to come through big for him.
He's making his salary here.
I will say his salary.
Yeah, we the biggest hit for the Broncos in this game was the loss of Javonte Williams, kind of breakout stud running back, sophomore running back, kind of was taking over that 1A role with Melvin Gordon being his 1B. You hate to see it. He's going to miss the rest of the season. He's going to miss a substantial amount of games next year. Hopefully that guy recovers ahead of time and comes back, better than before. But, you hate to see it. It's going to be tough. And they're going to have to rely on Russ a little bit more and rely on some of these receiving options as we go forward. So I have him in fantasy. I have that Cortland Sutton and Russ Wilson stack. So let's keep it up, boys. Let's go. Broncos country. Let's ride.
So I think that I said in our 2022 season predictions, playoff predictions show, I had the Raiders making it to the playoffs as the 4th place team in the AFC West, and then I had them winning the Super Bowl from an 0-3 start. And what I said was they're going to start out bad, they're going to figure it out. Now I don't know if I'm sticking with that. It was already a long shot, right? But Q, I believe you also had them getting into the playoffs. What are you thinking about the Raiders? You still feeling them for the playoffs? 0-3 statistically, they're far less likely to make it. But what do you think? You still feeling them?
Listen, like I said, I have not seen them use, or no, like Casey said, he has not seen them use Josh Jacobs like this before.
Right.
Like, I have not seen them use him like this. And
it's almost like this week they were like, hey, we need to win a game. So
yeah, like that he did such a good job at like taking the pressure off of like the team. Really, like he's such a staple. If he can perform like that every night, I promise you, the Raiders will get into the playoffs.
The Raiders is a team full of weapons. The big question mark is Derek Carr. Like, are you good enough to use weapons? Are you good? You don't even have to be great. Are you good enough to use weapons?
100%.
I've got a question for you, Q, kind of rounding out this game. You said you've invested in Josh Jacobs. We loved the usage. We hope it continues. More of a question about how they're going to continue to use him. Would you trade him high in fantasy now after this monster game and hope to get a big return on him for somebody maybe a little bit more stable, you have a little bit more confidence in? Or are you projecting he's going to get the load as we go?
Nah, I don't think I would trade him for something more stable. I think I'd honestly just keep him because now the Raiders have seen, they know what they need to do with Josh Jacobs. They've seen he can perform, and I think moving forward, they're going to use him accordingly. Like, it only makes sense for them to do that. And if he can have performances like this every night, it's like, we're good.
Yeah. Sorry,
we're good. So, yeah.
All right. Moving on from the Raiders. Week 4, we've got enough data, as much as you really get in the NFL. Week 4, we've got enough data to have this talk. Who are we underwhelmed by at the moment? Who are we hot on preseason that we're like, whether it's a team or an individual, that we're kind of now like, meh? I don't know. Casey, you go first. What you got? I mean, the Mitch Trubisky, that was kind of like your take last.
Yeah. I'll start there.
Week.
I'll take a little victory lap on that one. I said I was ready to see the rookies in a couple of different places, one of which has happened now. We're going to see, and actually the one I called for the earliest, Kenny Pickett is now the starter of the Pittsburgh Steelers, replacing terrible Mitch Trubisky. I mean, he didn't do all that bad, but just they actually want to go to the playoffs, and he's not going to do that for him. So hopefully the youngster can make some stuff happen, because that city is rallying behind him. They
love it. They're like, oh, he went to Pitt. He's not actually from Pitt, but he might as well be. He might as well be.
I think the diehards there would rather miss the playoffs with Kenny Pickett than barely scrape and claw their way into the playoffs and lose in the first round with Mitch Trubisky. So this is the right move for the fan base. I like it. Mike Tomlin said he wasn't going to do it, but I'm glad he changed his mind.
You got to understand, Steelers fans too are like, they don't care about the playoffs. You know what I mean? It's like, we don't care about losing a game in the playoffs. We care about like being actual contenders. So I agree there. I'll go next. I'm a little underwhelmed with Dalvin Cook. I think I really noticed this one because I'm a Vikings fan, and 2, because I took him with my first overall pick in fantasy. Look, the Vikings are 3-1. So as a Vikings fan, I'm like, okay, if you don't need to use them, don't use them. Just keep winning games. Even if they're by the skin of your teeth. But yeah, and I mean, currently sitting behind Rashard Penny in rushing yards at like 12th or 13th or 15th or 100th. It doesn't matter. He's not even close. But yeah, a little underwhelming. It seems like I wish I had this number, but it seems like the new brass is running more of a 2-back system. Am I the only one seeing that? What do you guys think?
Yeah, they're utilizing Madison a little more, but I think the main thing is they just want to pass more. They want to highlight those receivers. I mean, just early on, one of our first episodes that we ever shot, I think it was pretty obvious as you listen to my takes. I was very passionate about most of them, but I picked Dalvin Cook to be the leading rusher in the NFL, and I didn't even really believe it at the time. Not backing away from it. It was a bad take.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're seeing that obviously not come to fruition.
Yes, JJ, and I had JJ in receiving. He's still got a shot. Tyreek looks like he might be running away with receiving. It all depends on what Teddy Bridgewater can do. But you got Cooper Kupp, JJ, and I can't remember who else off the top of my head who are also in the running on receiving. AJ Brown. So Tyreek with 477 yards. Stephon Diggs, AJ Brown, Cooper Kupp with 406, 404, 402, and Justin Jefferson with 393. So I mean, Dalvin Cook seems to be getting scripted out a little bit more than Justin Jefferson and the just general passing game. Q, who you cool on? Who's underwhelming to you this season?
Underwhelming. I gotta say, I want to say I'm not very impressed with the Ravens' performances. I think there's multiple situations that I can think of where they could have, done something differently, and it would have literally had them win the game. They're 2-2 right now. And I think the 2 losses that they have on their record, they could have easily won. If they had just just done better, honestly, that's what it comes down to. Like, they're always right there on the cusp. Like, I think the other game, what did they lose by, 1 point or something? Or
I don't remember the particulars of each game, but I think they're the best team that looks bad still, if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, their record is not good. I'll separate it and I'll say the Ravens look horrible. Lamar looks incredible. Like, it's almost like he's not even part of that team.
Yeah, it is kind of like that. As a podcast, we snubbed the Ravens. None of us predicted them to go to the playoffs.
Nope.
I mean, I think this is kind of the route to that happening is you just generally like Lamar looks good. The Ravens look bad. And that's a tough division. That's going to be tough to get a playoff out of there. So, I mean, I'm sticking to that prediction too. I think we've got a few takes that we've all made that are not as hot, not looking as good at least. And this one is one that we could have got right, where most people would have thought we were crazy.
Go in the other direction. Not who is underwhelming, who's breaking out, who's having a breakout season. Who are y'all impressed with? I'll go first on this one. Not a hot take at all. But Saquon Barkley, we snubbed him in our running backs episode, so I feel like we got to go back to him. I don't even think we brought him up as an honorable mention, which, we really should have, but everybody knew who he was. But Saquon Barkley is in New York doing Saquon Barkley things. They've actually won some games basically because of him, and Daniel Jones being half the time. It's like he's either really good or really bad. But Saquon is always really good. He looks great. He's leading the league in rushing yards, I think leading in yards per attempt. Anything else to say on Saquon Barkley?
He's the best quarterback on their team.
He's the best.
He took
give him the ball. He is the Debo of New York.
Well, they had some unfortunate stuff happen at the quarterback position, and the emergency quarterback is him, and he had to take some snaps at Wildcat. And the offense looked fine. He just ran the ball, which is what they're going to do anyway. So why not just keep an extra blocker? I don't know. Just load up on linemen, let him play quarterback. Why not? Yeah. Well, we can roll into mine here. Mine's more of a breakout this week, in particular from a team that is, I would say, the opposite of the Ravens. They're the bad team that looks surprisingly good, the Lions, and they've had one breakout guy, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I could talk about him plenty, but I'm going to actually highlight TJ Hawkinson here because they were missing Amon-Ra, the sun god, in this last game. They were also missing their stud running back, DeAndre Swift. Those are the two biggest receiving weapons on this team. They have Jared Goff at quarterback. Not exactly a showstopper. Pretty middling quarterback in the league.
Not really. He's got a good year going so far, but not
sure. Yeah. But they're losing, and he's not highly regarded as a top quarterback by any means. And TJ Hawkinson, thought highly of coming out of college. Is one of the better tight end prospects, at least. Hasn't really aligned perfectly for him in the pros yet. But every once in a while he has a game like this, 2 touchdowns. Great receiving line. I don't have the whole thing here, but you just watch the game and you go, he took over that game, and they could win some games because of him this year, and especially when they really get things firing on all cylinders between all those threats when they're all healthy. The Lions are a sneaky good team. I think I've said it before. I think they're going to beat some playoff teams, but I don't know they actually make the playoffs.
Yeah. Q, who's breaking out this year? Who you got?
Dude, I got to be honest. I think they're the last undefeated team in the league right now. The Eagles, Jalen Hurts, he's really been impressing me. I'm not gonna lie.
I like this kid.
I was not expecting him. I knew he was a good quarterback, but I never expected him to really be so adamant to win. He's just really, you could tell this kid wants to win the game. And honestly, I forget which game. I can't remember if it was last week. I think it was last week. That was probably one of the best, most enjoyable games I've ever watched the Eagles ever play. So
the last time I remember liking the Eagles was when it was T.O. and who was the quarterback then?
Donovan McNabb.
McNabb. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, no, I'm liking this Jalen Hurts kid. I like you. The Eagles look great right now.
Yeah. He's a walking highlight reel too.
You gotta love those guys.
Yeah,
pretty sure. Going back to our playoff predictions, I think I was the only team
you won. Yeah, I think you were the only guy taking the Eagles. Yeah,
I know I had them winning the division. I don't know if one of you guys gave them a wild card, but I love that take now. I feel great about that. Jalen Hurts is looking good. I'm surprised by how good of a passer he looks this year because we knew he could run the ball. He's able to do that, but they're not even overusing him like that. He can throw, man. And who would have thought having AJ Brown, makes it easier to throw the ball.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our week 5 picks.
So John and I have our picks already done, Q. So as we go through the match.
So real quick, recapping last week, Casey and I were in lockstep until the Sunday night and the Monday night game. Casey won both those picks. So Casey finishes last week 9-7. I finished 7-9. Casey's got me by 2 points. We didn't track week 1, but we'll have to go back and look at that, keep it running total over the season. But yes, Casey and I have already written down and made our picks, so we're going to make you pick first on every game. Hope you're ready to go. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's do
Okay,
it.
rapid fire. Let's do this. Colts versus Broncos. I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up.
Broncos.
You got Broncos. Hang on.
Yes,
I thought I was gonna pull it up. Week 5. There we go. All right. Colts versus Broncos. You got Broncos. Casey, who you got?
I got the Broncos too.
I got the Colts. All right. Already got some controversy.
Nice.
No, man. Come on. Matt Ryan's going to turn it around. He's a former MVP, guys. He's a former MVP. It was only 100 years ago.
I still can't tell if you're serious.
I'm 100% serious.
Okay.
The Colts. Right there. Boom. Colts.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
Giants, Packers. Q.
I'm going to have to go with the Packers.
Casey.
As did I.
Go, Pack, go. That's 3 for the Packers. Lions versus Pats. Q.
Ooh.
Yeah, the Pats actually looks pretty good this week.
Is Amon Ra back here or?
I don't know. To be honest with you.
Nobody knows. You're just going to have to make the pick.
Lions. I'll go with the Lions.
Ooh, Casey, what you got?
I went with the Lions as well.
I also went with the Lions. Wow, everybody's snubbing the Pats after they played so well. Okay, number 4.
We didn't even talk about Zappy. I just want to say honorable mention. Zappy.
Honorable mention to friggin' Zappy. They should just make him the starter. Maybe
it will be. A lot of similarities between his storyline and Tom Brady's. Just saying.
Yeah, why not? Number 4, Chargers Browns. This one's an easy one. Q, what do you got?
Chargers.
Casey.
The Bolts. Yep.
Yes, Chargers. That's 3 for the Chargers. Number 4, Texans Jags. Also an easy
Jags.
Casey.
I got the Jags.
Also have the Jags. Next one, Falcons Bucks.
Bucks.
Next one, Steelers Bills.
Bills. What the?
Bills.
Yes.
Okay, we can just move on from that.
Easy so far.
Here we go. Here's an interesting one. Dolphins Jets. What you guys got?
Dolphins.
Casey?
I have the Dolphins as well.
I have the Jets. Let's go, Zach Wilson.
No,
it's kind of cool. I thought about taking the upset there.
I know you did because you waited a second when
that
we were
would
picking.
be a major upset.
Hey, I like it. Zach Wilson, tail of 2 halves. Zach Wilson looked great in the second half.
I believe in Zach. Let's go. All right.
I'm not ready yet, but I like the spirit. I like the Jets. But
Bears, Vikings, Q.
Ooh, Vikings.
Oh, come on. Okay.
Vikings.
Yeah.
Casey.
Yeah, Vikes.
Yeah. Vikes. Titans, Commanders. This is another kind of hard one.
Oh, dang. I'm going to have to go with the
Who
Titans.
sucks last?
This was
Casey?
one of 2 matchups that I did not know right away. I'm going Commanders here.
I'm going Titans. Let's go, Titans.
Okay. I'm the odd man out now.
Casey needs to lose some points. All right. Seahawks, Saints. This is another kind of tough one. Q, what you got? Probably going to be Andy Dalton, I'm guessing.
No. Okay.
No, I think there's going to be no Jameis. You're going to go Seahawks.
Yeah, no Jameis.
No Jameis equals Seahawks. All right.
Yes.
Casey.
I don't know that it's for sure. We're not getting Jameis. I don't know if that's confirmed yet. But
Andy Dalton almost beat the Vikings, so maybe they don't need Jameis.
I have one pretty hard fast rule I go by, and it's F the Seahawks, man. So I'm going Saints.
I also have the Saints here. Okay, next up, Niners, Panthers. Q.
Panthers with the upset.
That was pure spite. That was pure spite. Casey obviously has the Panthers as well, and I have the Niners in this one. Next game, Eagles, Cardinals. Q, what do you got?
Eagles.
Yeah, this is Eagles. Casey.
Eagles.
Yeah, I got the Eagles.
Oh, man. This is a hard one for me. This is a hard one for me because I have Kyler and James Conner in fantasy, but I also have the Eagles. Next one, Cowboys, Rams. Q, you got the Cowboys in this one?
Dude, honestly, the way the Rams have been playing pissed me off.
He's like, yeah, kind of.
I gotta have the Rams. Like,
Casey, what do you got?
I have Cowboys.
I have Cowboys too.
Of course you do.
I am a believer in Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush is 3-0 as a starter this year, 4-0 as a starter all time. I like this kid. I love Cooper. I told Casey off camera.
I
told Casey off camera. I was like, he's good, and Casey was like, man, no,
he's probably better than Dak, honestly.
I think so.
Real quick, not because of the quarterback. It's mostly because of what I saw from Stafford and those 7 sacks. And the Cowboys, the one thing they have going for him is Micah Parsons. He's going to terrorize Matthew Stafford, I think.
Yes. Okay, next up, Bengals, Ravens.
Ooh.
Casey. Or Q, sorry. Do the Ravens turn it around?
Going to have to go. This is a hard one, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I'm going to put my trust into the Ravens to pull it off.
This one is a big matchup with a lot of repercussions from this game. I'm going to stay true to kind of what I thought the whole year. The Bengals have been picking it up, and I got snubbed the Ravens going to the playoffs, so I got to say the Bengals are going to pull this one out.
Intellectually consistent. Bengals are full of momentum, I think, and I think they are going to get a win here. Last one. Q, Raiders, Chiefs.
Chiefs.
Casey?
Chiefs.
I got the Raiders by 30. No, I'm just kidding. Chiefs.
Okay. I was like, he's trying to lose.
Okay, we mostly agreed all the way across. Everybody's on an island for at least one game, though.
Yes. All right, let's do it. I'm on an island on the Jets. That's the worst island to be on, probably. It's funny because I always insult the Jets on this show. Like, they're the number one team I insult. Anyway, Casey, you wrap it up. You're way better at it than I am.
Triple Cross, thank you for tuning in to this episode. We appreciate it. So please drop a like onto the video if you enjoyed yourself. Hit that subscribe button so that YouTube knows you like our content, and hit the bell icon to get notifications for whenever we drop new content onto the channel. We drop in some clips every once in a while, some shorts. You don't want to miss out on those things. So until we see you next time, go Niners?
No. Go Panthers.
Go Niners.
Go Panthers.
And broadcast.